Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hello, and welcome to the October 4th edition of Basis Loaded with Joe Schmit. I am Joe Schmit. This episode, as always, is produced by Paige Driscoll with the help of the EverAg Insights team. This is the October 4th edition. As I mentioned, we have a 6/29 sunset. So we know what's coming. Days are getting shorter. What better way to celebrate than with the latest from the NDPSR report, starting with butter? This butter number coming in at 293.67 represents a plus 6 to the CME 1-week average of 287.50. Now, this was the beginning of our butter rally. The CME was up 15 cents. NDPSR not losing a step one bit here, moving 16 cents higher. Now, granted, we did trade 17 loads on the CME last week at essentially a 318 average. So those sales may have pulled the NDPSR weighted average higher. What's interesting is on this increase, big move higher in butter. And again, this is the fourth week now that we've had significantly higher than normal volume. This volume approaching 4.6 million pounds is well above our expected 3.5 million contracted level. So on the butter, big basis, outsized basis on outsized volume, maybe giving us a little bit of an indication as to how spot prices have ended up in the 340 neighborhood. Up next is cheese, and we'll start it off with blocks, 194.07. That represents a plus 4 to the CME 1-week average of 190.10. Now, the CME dropped 5 cents, NDPSR dropping 4, so a fairly decent correlation between the CME and the NDPSR. NDPSR volume lacking, only 2 loads trading on the exchange. So the big talk was on the rally in cheese higher, that it was essentially on light volume, and that once the sellers return, that's possibly when cheese prices come back and retrace a little bit. However, the cheese market is doing that, retracing a little bit, but on light volume on the way up, light volume on the way down. Light volume trend continues here on the NDPSR, just a smidge over 11 million pounds. So closer to normal, closer to that 12.5 million pound level that we would expect on the NDPSR, but still 1.5 million short. So volume lacking on the NDPSR. Buyers' appetites have not returned, even with the slight reduction in prices from the $2 level to the $1.90 level. We'll see as discounts become steeper in the weeks to come if the buy-side volume returns. Next is barrels, 179.38. That represents a plus 7 to the CME 2-week average of 172.37. So the CME 2-week average dropped 11 cents. We came a little bit short of that. Looks like about 9 cents here on the NDPSR. And then again, light volume, only 12.6 million pounds. And that's with 30 loads traded on the CME last week. That 30 loads traded essentially at a 151 weekly average price last week. 30 loads is a big chunk of volume, not really reflected here on the NDPSR. This NDPSR volume of 12.6, falling almost 900,000 pounds short of our expected 13.5 million pound level. The fact that basis was able to register a plus 7 really isn't much of a surprise. You would expect, as now the barrel price is fully into its descent towards 150, you would expect prices on the NDPSR to lag just a bit. That's what we saw here, failing to keep up with the CME by 2 cents. So all in all, I have to say higher than expected basis on lower than expected volume in the barrel. Next up is our whey, 30.99. That represents a plus 1 to the CME 1-week average of 29.75. Big volume on the CME in whey last week, 54 loads traded, so upwards of 1 million pounds. That extra 1 million pounds translates almost exactly here to the NDPSR. We would expect in a normal week to see 4.5 million pounds in sales. Here, 5.5 is our 4.5 expected plus the million at the CME. Sometimes the math works. This 30.99, let's call it 31. Again, when talking about whey, we want to go back to the September 16th NDPSR. We'll call that a revised 30 cents. 29.86, we'll call it 30 cents. So the manufacturer on all of those contracted sales of 4.5 million was able to call 1 cent over prior week's NDPSR. So the manufacturer able to sell their full allotment and call a little bit of a premium. This is a big win for whey, $30.99. And even though prices at the CME have worked lower since we achieved this $29.75 level, still seeing premiums here on the NDPSR. It'll be interesting if this is our high week for whey, as I suspect it may be. And then lastly, non-fat, $109.99. Can't get any closer to 110. That represents a minus 75 to our CME 1 week average of 110.75. Now, non-fat has been under pressure essentially all year. And this is the first week up off the mat after getting knocked down. CME up 2 cents to achieve that 110.75. Here on the NDPSR, of course, we're down 2.5 cents, but the manufacturer was able to move a big chunk of weight, almost 26 million pounds. So massive volume cleared, and just when you see prices start to trend higher at the CME, the manufacturer was able to get clear. Going forward should be in much better shape. It's interesting. This is a 5-week settlement for September, and we have revisions in both price and volume for every week that went into the September non-fat final calculations. 8 revisions plus 2 new numbers gives us 10 variables to work through when calculating the final non-fat price, and of course the class 4 final. So, as I said, this is week 5 of the September pricing cycle. And September class 3 went off the books a little bit lower than expected, coming in at 1839. Class 4 all the way up at 1909. If you carry current CME equivalents out through the remainder of the 4-week October pricing cycle, currently getting October class 3 of 1672 and October class 4 2175. So a big premium in that class 4 over class 3 with the increases that we've seen in butter. We'll see what they have in store for us in the weeks to come at the CME. Until then, I'm Joe. On behalf of Paige and the entire EverAg Insights team, thanks so much. Bye-bye.